So, just over 24 hours on from the conclusion of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. And here goes with the review. But most reviews I've seen have missed out on the major talking point and the thing that we should all be focusing on. Let's just play this through first.
Over yet. We're heading into the wall at high speed. Sainz and Perez.
So, that crash on lap 50 of 51. And what it did, that crash denied us of a grandstand finish. It denied us all, the watching world, of a climax to that event. And, you know, the sport of Formula One loves to bring us all to climax because that's what it does. It wants us to witness the grandstand finish. It loves it when, you know, somebody pulls out something later on and pops the cork, sprays the champagne over everywhere. It's a tried and tested plot and the kiddies love it. Now, the thing is, being racing fans, you know, real motor racing fans, you know, real men that like motor racing, you know, with like big hairy sacks with a big pair of bollocks inside and a chest wig, you know the sort. We felt denied a racing finish to that event, and therefore it just didn't feel right, did it? You know, because nobody wants to see a race end behind a safety car. You know, proper real racing fans like Matt and Tommy there with 494,000 subscribers. Real motor racing fans, you know, real men, real racing blood.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the P1 podcast with Matt.
You know, they've got these chairs that they play on their computers with that look like they could be from a car, and they've got some toys in the background. You know the sort, real motor racing fans, or maybe there's this chap. He looks like he could be a real motor racing fan as well.
There's that old saying. I say it's an old saying, but the chances are I've probably just made this up.
Yeah, he's got one of these chairs that look like it could be in a car as well. So yeah, he's definitely a real motor racing fan that talks about motor racing with 103,000 subscribers. You know this. This looks like it could be Ted's mate. Get off the sofa. These are the kind of real motor racing fans that would like to see a racing finish to an event because it becomes an anti-climax if it ends behind the safety car. Okay, some of these lads, like the strap-on fanboys, you're aspiring to being like a real motor racing fan. You'd love one of them seats to have a go in, wouldn't you, lads? To do your sim online gaming and bash away in the comments section in the manner that you do. Okay, but and you've not got the big balls. You guys suffering from overusage and running on empty. But what is key here? What is the key point? Is what Martin Brundle has been talking about today. Okay, the key point that everybody has missed is, in fact, what was this? Was this Formula One? What were Formula One saying about it? You know, because it was an anti-climax, was it? Here it is, the picture of the race ending. Behind on the virtual safety car, no overtaking, yellow flag conditions. So from the moment that collision happened, there wasn't time to clear up the debris, get them cars out the way, do all the proper procedures before racing can properly resume. So it had to be a virtual safety car finish. You know, it was like a complete anti-climax. Nobody wanted to see that. And this is what Formula One had to say about it.
That is a Grand Prix with all the elements of a classic.
All the elements of a classic, though. No, but nobody wants to see a race end behind a safety car. But thankfully, 24 hours on, Martin Brundle, at least Martin Brundle can see some sense. And Martin at least tells us how it is.
What should have happened is we should have had a red flag so that then the mess could get cleared away of the accident. Drivers could then choose their tyres and there would have been a 3-lap shootout.
A shootout. We wanted a shootout, didn't we? That would have given us the climax that we'd have all wanted. Oh, we should have had a red flag and a shootout, but that didn't happen. That didn't happen.
Towards the end. Strictly speaking, the regulations suggest that the safety car should have completed the next lap. And in fact, the regulations do allow for, if it's going to be a safety car finish, in other words, an accident just cannot be cleared away in time, the safety car pulls in the pits, there can be no overtaking. So the glorious shot for the world to see.
The grandstand finish, the pop in the cork moment.
On the TV and the photographer.
The glory shot, Martin, the glory shot
is not of a safety car with its lights blaring away with the winner behind it, but a racing car and a racing driver. So all sorts of provisions in there. And to say we ended up with a bit of a hybrid of all that, and it, you can look at it and argue that it played so heavily into Red Bull's hands at that point that it was unfair. But then Red Bull played some clever cards with.
I thought we went motor racing. I thought we have a motor race on our hands, Martin. I don't think it was anything to do with playing cards. You do that with the lads at the weekend, but we're doing real motor racing like real men, aren't we? What's cards all about, Martin?
Their strategy, perhaps on the first virtual safety car, Mercedes-Benz were a little bit too cautious, leaving them 44 laps to go on a set of tyres. So, there was some clever strategy going on, but then Red Bull had nothing to lose. Hamilton had the speed and had the lead, and so Red Bull had plenty of space behind them and grabbed a couple of safety car stops. So that's the way the cookie crumbled.
Martin, there was loads of, let's call them new.
Yes, this is another real motor racing fan.
Formula One fans watching yesterday. Can you see the positive that, right, they've had all that drama and we're still talking about it now, so maybe that keeps them interested. But the rules have been so complicated, a lot of people don't really understand still what actually happened yesterday. There is talk of court and such like, and those new fans might just think, actually, Formula One is so complicated, I've lost interest already.
Yeah, it's all too complicated. Send your kids to school, right? And whatever subject they're being taught at school, okay, it's all too complicated. I think what the teacher should do at school, right, when your kids go to school, the teacher should just go, don't you worry your little heads, children. This is just too complicated. Move on, okay? Or does the teacher tell the kids, well, this is how it is?
I think we had over 9 million people watching it on TV.
Pupils that you can teach there, Martin.
Yesterday, and the audiences are growing. Formula One's had an incredible year. It was a bit complicated and incredibly controversial, but I don't think it put people off watching Formula.
Thanks for your valuable insight there, Martin. Thanks for your valuable insight.
One, I think it'll engage them more into it, if I'm honest. But we do need some clarity. But it's an incredibly fast-moving, complex, highly technical sport, and
that is a superb explanation from the professor there, Martin Brundle.
I'm afraid you can write another 100 pages of regulations, but there will still be circumstances that are just not covered in it.
But that set of circumstances that we're talking about was covered. Thanks, Martin.
And it's like in any, football, cricket, rugby, or whatever. There's at some point there's a judgment call by.
No, a set of mandatory regulations, a set of procedures that needs to be carried out prior to the resumption of racing, isn't a judgment call. The judgment call is the determination of when the track is safe. Okay, and when that's been judged to be safe, you then carry out the procedure prior to racing.
Somebody. And I think I've said for years, for example, that lap runners should fall back to the pack.
You might have said that for years. Indeed, you have, Martin. But that's a retarded idea, and the reason that it's a retarded idea is proven in lots of videos that I've done, whereby Lando Norris had just been lapped by Lewis Hamilton, but Lando himself was in a race with Pierre Gasly. As it turns out, after Perez's retirement, Lando was in 7th and challenging for 6th position, okay? Just because the leader might have made it past Lando and was on his way to lapping Gasly as well, okay? So in maybe another lap or two, Gasly would have also been lapped and Gasly would have been in that position too. But at that moment in time, it just Lando was lapped and somebody sticks it into the wall. And you think that that can then result in Lando being left a lap behind Gasly, the car that he was previously closer to than Verstappen was to Hamilton. You want to allow Verstappen right on Hamilton's backside, don't you? You want to allow that, but you also, in the same breath, want to make Lando Norris lose a lap on Gasly. When prior to the incident, Norris was closer to Gasly than Verstappen was to Hamilton. Retarded idea, Martin. But thank you once again, as the professor, for your valuable insight.
And not have to go out front and get round again. It slows things down. As it happens, that would have cost Lewis Hamilton dearly back in Imola when he was recovering from an incident.
Yeah, as it happens, my retarded idea, which isn't in the regulations because it's a retarded idea, had they have done my retarded idea, then that would have cost Lewis Hamilton in Imola in 2021. Let's have a look, shall we? If we go along to have a look at Imola. This was Imola, the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. This was them starting the race that day. See these greens here? Guess what tyres they're on?
Pit lane. It's lights out and away we go. Verstappen gets an excellent reaction. Hamilton, though,
Hamilton was on pole, okay, in the lead. What kind of a start was that? Oh, that was a standard start.
it's ahead of Perez, but not for long.
A standard standing start. Why is there now all of this mist? It's the haze, all the water coming up off the track.
There's Max Verstappen now on the inside, joins Hamilton.
It's a wet track, and we had a standing start. Yeah, that was Emilia Romagna. That just a bit further on at that chicane, then that's the one that Strap-on shoves Hamilton off the track. What do you call that? Let them race. No penalty for crowding there for Verstappen. But later on in that race, Bottas and Russell have a crash. Shit everywhere, okay? Gone all over the track. Barrier damage, 2 cars need recovering. Red flag. There's no safe passageway through where it's highly likely that cars will pick up a puncture because the debris is all over the track and will take ages to clear up. So they red flagged it and gave the time prior to the red flag. Okay, and this relates to why they didn't do a red flag at Azerbaijan this year. But prior to the red flag, any cars that had been lapped, sorry, not prior to the red flag, prior to the restart, so they red flagged the race. Prior to the restart, any cars that had been lapped, right, they were released out of the pit lane. They went around the track, completed that lap, came back into the pit lane and formed up behind the rest of the line of cars, making them on the lead lap. Oh, they carried out the safety car procedure. Why have they done that? Because stopping the race, okay, dealing with a safety incident has neutralised racing, and therefore you have to reset all of the parameters for all of the competitors. Oh, so you send them out so they've all completed the same distance, therefore all utilise a similar fuel load, and then you can then go back to starting. So what did they then do? They went out behind the safety car to form the grid up again, because that's what you do. When you red flag it, you restart the race with a reformed up grid. So it's a standing start again. What did they do?
End of the lap before we go racing again. And finally, after this...
Oh, rolling start. I thought it was just Lewis Hamilton that got the advantage in Imola.
The lead very nearly got caught right before the...
Oh, Verstappen's in the lead, so we'll do a rolling start and allow him to get the jump on everybody and not do a standing start. Who got the advantage in Imola, Martin Brundle? Who got the advantage in Imola? Tell us, Martin. But, let's go back to, we're talking about the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, aren't we? We're talking about the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, which was how many races afterwards? So there was Imola, and then we've got Portugal, where Max overtook off the track. Spain, where Max dive bomb Lewis, crowded him at that first corner. Monaco, where Christian Horner tells Gasly from the B team to make sure he keeps Hamilton behind him. And then we get to Azerbaijan here. So, we're a bit further on into the season. And we get to this race. Can we remember what happened here?
And you see his reaction there.
I mean, that is atypical. That's an unusual reaction from Max Verstappen. I mean, we don't see Max displaying any sort of petulance, aggression, foul-mouthed outbursts at his team when things aren't going his way.
By 1 psi. I'll spare a thought for Max Verstappen, who hasn't put a foot wrong.
He's a level-headed lad usually, and he's usually quite jovial when things aren't going according to plan. I mean, because he takes things in his stride, and he's able to laugh about things.
Cancel that. Lap cars will not be allowed to overtake.
Yeah, of course. Typical decision.
It's classic.
I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised either. Not surprised either, because, like I say, normally when things aren't going his way, he's able to laugh about it, is young Max. But no, in Azerbaijan, did we get a rolling start again? Oh no, Max isn't in the race. We can't give Max that advantage. We'll play by the rules this time. We'll do what we always do when we red flag a race and then restart it. We restart it with a standing start. And then we had what jeopardy. Had this race have restarted with a rolling start, maybe the drivers would have concentrated a bit more and maybe got the settings right on their car and not had brain fade. Who knows? Who knows? One can only speculate. But thankfully, and this is key, is that a couple of months on from now, we'll get a bit of clarity. When we've had chance to let the dust settle, had chance to evaluate the situation, okay, and look back at history, look back at previous occurrences, and determine what the rules are, what the key problems were. We can then go back and give a proper account of what really went on. So that was when I think that was the one that I've just played you, wasn't it? Yeah, let's just check. That was on the 13th of December 2021. Once but just as settles on, we've had chance. The 9th of February 2022. We can at least then be able to admit the error of our ways.
Yeah, it's completely unacceptable for the fans, for us in the media, not really knowing what's going on with all these sub-meetings. So it needs clarity. It needs a much broader system to control what is a hugely complex and variable thing. Should he have thrown a red flag as soon as the car crashed? Yes, it would have been.
Should he have thrown a red flag? Where's the energy for this? I thought that race had it all. It had all of the elements of a classic, Martin. All of the elements of a classic, they tell us. Should he have thrown a red flag? Yes, what are the rules, Martin? Why couldn't they throw a red flag in Baku? Oh, would that be because, had they thrown a red flag on lap 50 of 51, well, lap 51 would be taken up on that out lap as those cars are going from the pits around the track to form the grid. So as they're forming up on the grid, well, that's the end of the race. There is no race, okay? We can learn that, Martin, can't we? So there was no talk of that. But, you know, this is what we know. These are the rules of the sport that we know, Martin. Why are you trying to lie to people to suggest that Abu Dhabi was somehow different, Martin? Because we've seen lots of safety car situations before. We've seen lots of safety car restarts. We've seen safety car finishes before, Martin. Why are you telling us that?
Should he have thrown a red flag as soon as the car crashed? Yes, it would have been.
No, Martin. And the reason no is you look at the incident and you decide what measure you're going to utilise to deal with that incident. And the criteria for throwing a red flag is the track blocked or is it passable? The track was passable, evidently, because those cars were lapping around that track behind the safety car with Latifi's car still on track. So no, it didn't meet that criteria. Was anybody's life in peril, and therefore was the medical car required to be in that location dealing with an emergency incident? No, so it didn't tick that box either. Would this incident take a prolonged period of time to deal with and therefore mean that it would take too much time out of the race? Well, what would be too much time? Well, the average time taken for this sort of an incident under a safety car is 5.5 laps. So that's the average time, meaning that it can take anything between, say, 3 to 7 laps, anything like that. So even up to 7 laps is not too much time, okay? So providing it's not going to be much more than that, then it's not a red flag situation. Doesn't tick the box for a red flag. So no, Martin, it's not a red flag situation. I'd have thought 2 months on from the event, you'd have been able to evaluate all this, Martin.
Better than we'd had a fair fight at the.
A fair fight, Martin, a fair fight. Was it not a fair fight between Oscar Piastri and Charles Leclerc in Baku? Was that not a fair fight? You know, a whole Grand Prix where cars have been racing one another and one had got the better of the other. You know, where with 1 lap to go, or 1.5 laps to go, one car was winning by 1.5 seconds. Were we not seeing a fair fight? Where was the energy for a red flag and a shootout there, Martin? Where was the energy for that? You know, there was another race I can remember where somebody had got a 12-second lead, but you wanted to see a fair fight, didn't you? Yeah, you wanted to see a fair fight. You wanted to see the person that was smashing the other person get nobbled so that you could see a fair fight, wasn't it, Martin? That's the kind of fair fight you wanted to see, isn't it, Martin?
The end of the Grand Prix. But does that mean then every time you get towards the end of a Grand Prix, if there's an incident, you must throw a red flag? That's an uncomfortable precedent too.
Yeah. See, that's an uncomfortable precedent. Throw it out there for people to debate in the comments section, Martin, or just dismiss the bullshit notion because there's rules and regulations which dictate how you must deal with these sort of things. Not what you think in the comment section. But as the professor of the sport, you'll be able to tell people that, won't you? Rather than just throw shit out there for them to argue about, Martin.
To put in place. So it's not straightforward. I know an awful lot of things that were going on around and about it, and it is super uncomfortable for Formula One, but you can't unravel.
Yeah, it is super uncomfortable. You do know an awful lot of things about it, don't you, Martin? You know an awful lot about it. You knew an awful lot about it in order to be able to commentate about what was going to happen before it happened. Isn't that strange, Martin? Isn't that strange?
The result. Red Bull did nothing wrong. Ferrari did nothing wrong. But
Red Bull did nothing wrong, says Martin. But Martin, this entire video was about Michael Massey Red Bull Audio Abu Dhabi is really uncomfortable, says Martin. You find it really uncomfortable that Jonathan Wheatley is on the radio to Michael Massey saying, Michael, you know you don't have to let those lapped cars go right around the track. And then we have a motor race on our hands. You know, because we're all real men who like motor racing. But Martin thinks that that's a card game. You know, and you find that really uncomfortable. And we've got Christian Horner that he goes, Christian to Michael, why aren't we getting these lap cars out of the way? Because Christian, I'm trying to deal with this incident. We only need one racing lap. So Red Bull did nothing wrong. Red Bull did nothing wrong. Jedi mind trick did nothing wrong. But they were coercing the official, and then the official broke the rules. Does that not look like collusion to you, Martin? Red Bull did nothing wrong. Ferrari did nothing wrong. Oh, where did Ferrari come into this? Ferrari, the team that was nobbled, blocked off from their third place competitor from even being able to challenge second position. Yes, Ferrari did nothing wrong. You can't unravel that because they did nothing wrong.
Place, for example, you can't penalise them because they did nothing wrong.
Absolutely right, Martin. You can't penalise them. And so rewinding the result to the end of lap 56, okay, because the rules were broken on lap 57, so the last valid lap was lap 56. You know, you'd be penalising Ferrari by doing that, because if you do that, the end of lap 56, well, Perez had retired, so that means, means Carlos Sainz, because Perez didn't cross the line to complete lap 56, did he? No, he didn't. He retired. That gifted Mercedes the $177 million Constructors' Championship money. So, yeah, Carlos Sainz would have come third. You're not penalising Carlos Sainz in third by doing that, are you, Martin? Yeah. How do you unravel that? Quite easily, Martin. Quite easily.
The FIA can only penalise themselves. They got
Oh, yeah, they can only give themselves a slap on the wrist. Thank you for that, Martin. Thank you for that. Anyway, Azerbaijan Grand Prix of yesterday, Sunday. Well, it's probably Tuesday now, so the day before yesterday. I will do a bit of an audio breakdown, but I think a lot of people are missing out on this. We get swept along on this tidal wave of bullshit that surrounds the sport. You know, we get commentators who
Make a collision at high speed.
who talk really fast to get you all excited and aroused. And, you know, everybody is mesmerised by that. As everybody thinks that they're a real racing fan by being swept along by that. And very few people can just calmly look at what's really happening. So, lap 50 of 51. An incident occurs. There's not time left in that race to go racing again. So we see out that race under a safety car. What's the problem? What's the problem? It's not a problem, is there? We didn't want to red flag it and have a shootout to see who'd win between Charles Leclerc and Oscar Piastri, did we? We didn't need that. No, Oscar had beaten him. Okay, Oscar had done enough. All Oscar needed to do was stay on track effectively, not break down, not crash out, and he was on course to win that race, wasn't he? Yes, he was. Likewise, Abu Dhabi 2021. Lewis Hamilton had done enough. He was winning by 12 seconds. 5.4 laps to go. The average time taken to deal with such a safety incident as Nicholas Latifi would be 5.5 laps. I've done the data. It's a data-driven sport. It's a highly technical, complex sport. So don't you worry your little heads. Luckily, you've got me to do the data for you, because Martin won't. He'll just tell you it's just too complicated. So don't you worry your little heads about it, okay? He's the professor. He's the expert, not me, okay? I'm nobody. I'm just sitting here in my chair that looks like one of those racing car seats because I'm also a real man. yeah, I've not got one of them chairs, by the way. Not got one of them chairs. Really jealous. Really jealous. Anyway, don't believe the hype. Don't believe the hype. It's narrative. They're salesmen. They want to sell you the sport. They want to hype you up. They want to get you excited, get you aroused, give you a grandstand finish. But then when it doesn't happen, it was still a great race, wasn't it? Still a great race. It had it all, didn't it? It had it all. It had all the elements of a classic.
Solid margin. That is a Grand Prix with all the elements of a classic.
Absolutely right there. Absolutely right. All of the elements of a classic. Didn't have to manufacture that one, did they? Didn't want, well, they might have done. Who knows? Who knows? This is an entire contrivance. What's happened with the pace of that Red Bull car? Okay, which wings are flexing on which cars? Which cars are legal? Which ones aren't? Which ones are getting penalised? Which ones aren't? Nobody knows. And the secretive FIA will penalise some, but not others. And you know, when we talk about the penalties that some get and others don't. If we can go to the Azerbaijan penalties, we've got what's that one there? We've got a collision. Was some penalties handed out for that collision? Well, let's have a look. Carlos Sainz. No further action. Okay, no further action for Carlos Sainz, and the reason. The stewards heard from the driver of car 11, Sergio Perez, the driver of car 55, Carlos Sainz, team representatives, and reviewed positioning, marshalling system, data, video, and in-car evidence. They've spoken to the drivers, they've spoken to the teams, they've done all the reviews, they've done a thorough process here. Right? Sainz and Perez made contact and crashed shortly after turn 2 on lap 50. This is a situation where a small touch had significant consequences. A small touch had significant consequences. He could have killed him. He could have put him into the wall at 51G, just a small touch that has significant consequences, okay? The stewards reviewed how the incident occurred, though, and not the consequence, okay? They focus on the contact, okay, and how that contact occurred, not what resulted in the aftermath. We're really cross, Michael. Our driver could have been killed there. We're glad that he was able to walk away that because he could have been severely injured there. We're not interested in the consequence. We're interested in just what constituted the incident there. Jonathan, new head of Audi, inciting the violence. Okay, Sainz passed Perez after turn 1 and was completely ahead at the apex of turn 2. With a compromised exit by Sainz, Perez pulled to the inside of Sainz. Sainz reported that he was aware of Perez to his inside. Oh, drivers being aware that there's another car on their inside. Yeah, funny that, isn't it? Perez, being slightly behind, was in a better position to see the relative location of the cars, but as the two cars approached the wall on the right at the exit of turn 2, they were about a metre apart. From this point and throughout the incident, neither driver steered erratically, and indeed both kept their steering wheel very neutral. Who was keeping their steering wheel along the correct path to make that corner at Silverstone 2021? Who was driving across the line of the other car? I wonder. The stewards checked the driving line of the drivers on previous laps. Oh, this was lap 1 at Silverstone. This was two cars dueling for position. Okay, Sainz was on or close to his normal racing line, which forms a slight angle away from the right-hand wall. From the exit to the point of contact, he moved approximately 1 car width further away from the wall. Perez moved approximately half a car width further away from the same wall, being more parallel to the right-hand wall. It was thus apparent that while ahead and having the right to drive his line, Sainz did move slightly towards a car that he had limited vision of. At the same time, there was nothing unusual about Perez's line, but he could have done more to avoid the car that he had better view of. In conclusion, and let's just scroll this down here, the stewards deem this to be a racing incident with neither driver being predominantly at fault and take no further action. So no further action for that collision. What's this one? That's the same one from Sergio Perez's point of view. What happens when Lewis Hamilton is involved? They didn't wait till have a word with Lewis and Max. They didn't get the drivers in and ask them what they thought. They didn't get the teams in, okay? They just reviewed video and telemetry evidence. Car 33 and 44 entered turn 9 with car 33 in the lead and car 44 slightly behind and on the inside. Was he more than half a car length alongside going into that braking zone? Yes, he was. Does that entitle him to the inside line around that corner? Yes, it does. Does that mean the car on the outside has to adjust his line and stay wide of the car on the inside? Yes, it does. How much space was there to the outside of Max Verstappen? Oh, approximately 3 car widths. Did Lewis Hamilton crowd Max Verstappen off track to the left-hand side of that track? No, he didn't. What happened? Oh, on entry to that corner, prior to reaching the curbing of that corner, nowhere near the apex, nowhere near the midpoint of that corner where they change the steering angle to unwind as they exit the corner, nowhere near that, before the curbing, Lewis was on course for that curbing, and Max cuts his car across the nose of Lewis Hamilton with an erratic steering action. That is what happened. That is what is proven in many of my videos, but the stewards will tell you this. Car 44 was on a line that did not reach the apex of the corner. Yes, that line was, what was it done? It was, what's the word I'm looking for? It was impacted. The line was on course to reach that apex, and Lewis's steering got deviated when Max Verstappen's rear right wheel hit Lewis Hamilton's front left wheel. That caused Lewis to have to counter steer to keep his car on track. That is why Lewis Hamilton drifted away from the apex. There is nothing in the rules of engagement or regulations that state you must hit an apex of the corner when going motor racing. All you have to do is leave enough room on track for a fellow competitor and not drive erratically. Lewis didn't do anything of the sort. He didn't drive him off track, didn't drive erratically. The other car drove across Lewis Hamilton. Car 44 did not avoid contact, and the left front of car 44 contacted the right rear of car 33. Car 44 is judged predominantly at fault. There you go. And he got a 10-second time penalty and 2 penalty points on his licence. Hungary this year. Max Verstappen, alleged turn 1 incident, okay, alleged breach of Appendix L, Chapter 4, Article 2D of the FIA International Sporting Code. Decision, no further action required for Max. The stewards heard from the driver of car 1. Oh, you didn't hear from Lewis in Silverstone, did you? And the driver of car 44. Team representatives and reviewed positioning, marshalling system, data, video, timing, telemetry, and in-car video evidence. See, you do all your checks then, don't you? Silverstone 2021. No, 10 seconds, 2 points. Oh, Max is involved. Oh, let's ask Red Bull and Max what they think. Yeah? Okay. On approach to turn 1, both car 44 and car 1 overtook 23. Lovely story. Paint the picture. Car 44 returned to the racing line before the braking zone and commenced to turn into turn 1. Car 1 approached the turn faster than on previous laps due to DRS. Oh, he'd not had DRS before, had he not? Oh, yes, he had. Oh, but on this lap, he went faster due to DRS. Thanks for that excuse. That's not valid. And braked at the same point as previously. Oh, did he really? But he locked up. Why didn't he lock up previously? If he was braking at the same point as previously? Something doesn't add up. Does your telemetry actually display that, lads? I wonder. What's happening? Does your telemetry tell us about whether there's any asymmetry in the braking that Max has been used to that would enable him for these late lunge manoeuvres that he's been able to stick, but all of a sudden he can no longer do it? Oh, that's a bit strange, isn't it? Andrew Benson from the BBC will tell you that. He'll tell you what he said, she said. He said, she said. He said, she... No, because Andrew doesn't tell you anything. He just gives quotes. Anyway, where are we? On approach to turn one, both car 44 and car 1, I've gone through that bit, haven't I? He braked at the same point as previously. The driver of car 1 argued that car 44 was changing direction under braking. No, not only you're capable of doing that, Max, with your asymmetric braking device, which you couldn't do, could you? Because that device has now been outlawed. So yeah, that's why you're locked up and carried straight on. Is that how it works? Is it, Max? Maybe that's not the case. Maybe that's a smokescreen for another Red Bull cheat, because it seems to have lost some straight line speed as well. It doesn't add up, does it? There's a lot of smoke and mirrors in this charade of a show. Anyway, but we can all argue about it in the comments section, whilst we'll never find out the truth, and cheating will be allowed to be carrying on. But something is not right. Anyway, the driver of car 1 argued that Lewis was changing direction and braking. The driver of car 1 likes putting the blame on everybody else. The driver of car 1 cannot take responsibility for his own conduct and his own errors. It's always somebody else's fault. What is that the traits of? What is that the traits of? I do wonder. Anyway, the driver of car 44 stated that he was simply following his normal racing line, which was confirmed by examination of video and telemetry evidence of previous laps. It was clear that car 1 locked up both front wheels on the approach to turn 1 prior to any impact occurring, but missing the normal cornering line for a typical overtaking manoeuvre. What would that indicate? That would indicate that car 1 was not in control. That's an offence. If you cause a collision through not being in control, you are driving dangerously. You're not in control, you've caused a collision. That's an offence, that's a penalty, that's penalty points on your licence. The driver of car 44 is a charitable man. He stated that this was a racing incident, whilst the driver of car 1 argued that this was a case of changing direction under braking. So even when he's been offered an olive branch, he still puts the blame elsewhere. That's your hero. That's the man that you worship. Lads, you know I'm talking to you. You guys, you that come here with your comments, yeah? That's the man that you worship. Yeah? That's the best he's got. That's the best he's got. The stewards do not consider this to be a typical case of changing direction under braking. Why do they not consider that? Because it wasn't. Although it is in our determination that the driver of car 44 could have done more to avoid the collision. Oh, it's Lewis's fault. Lewis should have jumped out of the way of an out-of-control Max. So it's his... Lewis has got to be partially to blame for the impact, has he? Accordingly, we determined that no driver was predominantly to blame and decided to take no further action. So 2 cars hit each other. One of them has locked up and ploughed on and smashed into the other, but no car is predominantly to blame. Lewis hasn't done anything out of the ordinary, but he could have jumped out the way of it, so therefore no one's predominantly to blame. Thank you for your valuable insight there, the FIA. What one's this one? 2021 Italian Grand Prix. Collision. The stewards heard from the driver of car 33 and the driver of car 44, and team representatives reviewed the video evidence and determined that the driver of car 33 was predominantly to blame for a collision. Predominantly, not entirely to blame for landing on Lewis Hamilton's head. From being behind at the braking zone and still trying to overtake around the outside going into a chicane. Really? From being behind at the braking zone, and you're saying that that makes him just predominantly that's fully to blame. Car 44 was exiting the pits. No. Car 44 was on track going in to turn 1. Okay, the pit bit is irrelevant. Okay, car 33 was on the main straight at the 50-meter board before turn 1. Car 44 was significantly ahead. So we're talking about that the pit bit is irrelevant, isn't it, lads? We're talking about the entry to turn 1. Where are the relative positions of the two cars on entry to turn 1? Oh, Lewis Hamilton is fully ahead. So what does Max have to do? Oh, you've got a car fully ahead of you. Put your foot on the brakes, tuck in behind it. I know, I'll try and go round the outside. No. It's a chicane. You can't do that. You've not earned the right to do that. That is not in accordance with the rules of engagement of motor racing. You real motor racing fans, you'd know all that, wouldn't you? You'd, those of you with your racing seats, you clearly know loads about motor racing because you've got your racing seats there. You'd know all about that, wouldn't you? You'd be able to tell us about that. But maybe not. They'd just parrot the narrative because they just copy what they hear on the telly. Yes, and tell us what they think about the situation, giving their valuable opinion rather than have the ability to analyse the facts of the matter. But, giving your opinion gets you 100 to 500,000 subscribers. That's really great. And the strap-on fanboy, they love that. They love the opinion. They love listening to opinions, and they love giving their own. But they don't understand what constitutes fact. And they don't understand what constitute rules, regulations, but think Martin Brundle, the professor, is capable of informing them and educating them correctly. Thank you for your valuable insight, Martin Brundle. Anyway, fraudster. During the hearing... Oh, sorry, I've missed a bit out here. Car 44 was exiting the pits. And car 33 was on the main straight at the 50-meter board before turn 1. Car 44 was significantly ahead of car 33. That's all there is to it. Car 33 braked late and started to move along car 44. When? As they're going into a corner? No. You can't do that, okay? Because once you've done your braking, you're now in the cornering phase, and you can't be expected to deviate your line as you're going around a corner like that. That's why we have rules of engagement. You try and do that, you're going to cause collisions, hence rules of engagement. Okay. Although at no point in the sequence does car 33 get any further forward than just behind the front wheel of car 44. Well, this is after he's getting onto the sausage curb. Okay, at the point of entry to turn 1, and turn 2 is immediately after because it's a chicane. Okay, and it's not an overtaking point around the outside there. Based on the line that Lewis Hamilton was on entry to that corner, it was not an overtaking point. During the hearing, the driver of car 33 asserted that the cause of the incident was the driver of car 44 opening the steering after turn 1 and squeezing him to the apex. Oh, so once again, the driver of car 33 projects the blame elsewhere. It's his fault. It's his fault. It's his fault. I'm the victim. I'm the victim. I'm the victim. Oh, what type of person is car 33? What kind of person is car 33? The driver of car 44 asserted that the driver of car 33 attempted to pass very late and should have given up the corner either by backing off sooner or by turning left behind the curb. You back off because you're not in a position to challenge. You put your foot on the brake. At that location, you start braking or you bail out of the manoeuvre. If you've gone in too hot, that's why that runoff area is there. No, not you, Max Verstappen. You get out the way or we crash. That's what you get if you don't leave enough room, is Max Verstappen's attitude, isn't it? That was the one, weren't it, Max? That's what you get when you don't leave enough room, when you're trying to wheel spin on top of Lewis Hamilton's head. The stewards observed CCTV footage that the driver of car 44 was driving and avoiding line. So Lewis Hamilton was still trying to get out of the way, knowing that this prick was outside of him, right? Although his position caused car 33 to go onto the curb. Oh, it's Lewis's fault that caused Max to go on the curb, according to the stewards, but not the fact that Max should have backed out and slotted in behind Lewis. And if he felt that he was on a line for that curb, you bail out to the left-hand side. Yeah? Right. But further, the stewards observed that car 33 was not alongside car 44 until significantly into the entry of turn 1, hence not entitled to be there. Okay? In the opinion of the stewards, this manoeuvre was attempted too late for the driver of car 33 to have the right to racing room. Oh, that would be the application of rules of engagement, wouldn't it, lads? You had to do it, didn't you? You had to do it. Whilst car 44 could have steered further from the curb to avoid the... Once again, Lewis Hamilton hasn't done enough to avoid Max Verstappen smashing into him. Let's put the blame on Lewis for not jumping out of the way enough. Once again, all right? It's Lewis's fault for not moving out of the way, okay? Your fault for not dodging the bullet, Lewis. Your fault, okay? It's not the bloke that pulled the trigger. It's not his fault for trying to kill you. It's your fault for not dodging out of the way of it. You understand that. It's your fault. While car 44 could have steered further from the curb to avoid the incident, the stewards determined that his position was reasonable and therefore find that the driver of car 33 was predominantly to blame. Not fully to blame, just predominantly to blame. And in coming to the penalty, the stewards emphasised they've only considered the incident itself and not the consequence thereof. Okay. Tell the lads back at Silverstone when they're broadcasting to the world, we're really cross about this, Michael. Everybody knows that you don't put a wheel up the inside at that corner. We've seen loads of overtakes at that corner. Everybody knows that you don't put a wheel upside there. You know, Max could have been really injured there. He could have, my driver ended up in hospital. Max has ended up in hospital with a 51G impact there, says Christian. I'm really angry about it. We don't consider the consequences. We just consider the incident itself. We only consider Max Verstappen chopping across the line that Lewis Hamilton was on. Oh, Lewis could have done more to avoid that, couldn't he? Lewis could have dodged that bullet as well. 10-second penalty, 2 points on your licence to you, Lewis. What's this last one I've got loaded up here? Azerbaijan 2024. Max Verstappen overtaking under virtual safety car conditions after the checkered flag. Warning. Now, just on this one, there were 4 drivers, I think this. I'll have it on this tab here. See, I like my tabs. It was car 10, car 31, car 1, and car 27. 4 cars were cited for that offence, and all of them were given warnings. So the offence is overtaking under virtual safety car, and it was after the checkered flag. So yellow flag conditions, no overtaking, but the race had finished. So there's 2 ways of looking at this, but I'll explain the side that I'll come down on. The race has ended. So, to an extent, we can all say, all right, the race has ended, and all they're doing now is doing that further lap around the track to make it way back to the pits. And therefore, it doesn't really matter whether they overtake each other, because it's just that cool down lap where they're, so they're not racing. It's not under racing conditions, so you're not really having any effect on the race itself. You're not doing anything that is kind of impacting the race. Okay, so I get that argument, which is fine, but the whole purpose of yellow flag conditions is safety. All right. Now, the argument put forward here is that they knew the location of the incident, and therefore they knew that they'd passed the site of the crash between Sainz and Perez, and so they could then proceed around that cool down lap, and because the car in front was going slow, it doesn't matter, just go past him and carry on your cool down lap and back to the pits, and that shouldn't be an infringement. Kind of understand that. However, we're under yellow flag conditions. That yellow flag related specifically, virtual safety car, related specifically to that particular incident. But what's there to say that another incident didn't occur? Let's say at another location further around that lap, something else had happened and therefore required the drivers to be observing yellow flag conditions still. You're not going to make them aware of the secondary incident because the yellow flags are already being displayed. They're already under yellow flag conditions and should be observing those conditions. And if they are, then that's safe. But if they've decided to go, oh, the race is over, we'll no longer observe these conditions, we can just ignore them and just pass each other, it's fine, nothing to worry about. When they then encounter the incident that is the secondary cause of a yellow flag situation, well, are they then, potentially not going to be able to react in time, and potentially there could be some consequence from that? And this is the situation. If you're under yellow flags, you've got to observe the rules, because that particular yellow flag was thrown for that particular incident. There's nothing to say that something could have happened beyond that they didn't know about, that they weren't aware about, and all of a sudden they come round one of them corners in that tight section, that street circuit tight section. You come round a corner, there's something on the track in your way. Oh, I was just overtaking him at that point, because with the race, bang. Right, yellow flag conditions. You don't know what the situation is. Just drive to yellow flag conditions. So perhaps a warning is okay, but clarify it to people. Clarify it that these are safety situations. There could have been marshals on track further around that lap dealing with something else. All right? Knowing that the cars were under yellow flag conditions and therefore should have been driving accordingly. If then drivers are then ignore what they're supposed to be doing under yellow flags, then there's a problem. There's a problem. So technically, if you are judging things properly, then they should be penalised. They should get a penalty for that, and they should get penalty points on their licence. But then what you should also have is strong enough officials in the sport to have educated the competitors and the teams about those requirements in the first place, giving them such an example to demonstrate to them exactly the purpose of the need to abide by those rules and regulations under those conditions. But who's doing that? Who is actually doing that? Well, the governing body of this sport isn't fit for purpose. That's a fact. The governing body of this so-called sport is corrupt. That's a fact. The media presenting this show is corrupt. That's a fact. The teams that are competing in this sport are corrupt. That's a fact. We're watching a whole shit show. There's a few channels out here that are calling it out. Okay? There's a few channels that are trying to tell the truth and expose the corruption, expose what is wrong. And sadly, I'm not sure about FF1 Boy 10 Dio or NS&C. I don't know if any of you guys, or Wonderful, I don't know if you've got one of your one of these racing chairs that makes you a real man, and makes you, you know, a proper Formula One notable. But none of you guys have 100,000 subscribers. You know, maybe because it's not all about you. You know, maybe it's not about promoting yourself on camera, and like me, you're just a voice behind a screen, because you're not that bothered about becoming a celebrity. You just want to tell it how it is. Who knows? Who knows what it takes to be able to get the truth out to the masses of people? But then again, most of the masses, they're brain dead, and they like this. You know, that you get two lads talking about something and it gets 216,000 views. I expose global corruption, and you get 7,000 subscribers, which I do thank you all for. Apart from the trolls, I'm not thankful of your subscription, lads. Yeah, I know you love it. You love bashing away. You'll be the first here to this video, won't you? In the comments section, letting me know what you think. Let me know what you think in the comments section. Anyway, lads, enjoy your night. Thank you all for your time. Please like and subscribe. Please keep sharing the content, and help educate people. Help expose the true reality to people. Loads more to come about Abu Dhabi. I'll go through some of the audio clips that I recorded when watching the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, but I just thought I had to, in this video, focus on that notion of the racing finish. The racing finish! What real motor racing fans want. You know, real men, real motor racing fans that want to see a racing finish. That the teams agreed to a racing finish, didn't they all? Didn't they, lads? Everyone agreed to the racing finish. Ha 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 ha. The teams agreed to a racing finish. Made it an anti-climax for some of you, didn't it? Made it an anti-climax for you. Still saved a few tissues for you all. Anyway, until next time. Thank you for your time.